My fiancé told me. Quit asking about my past. You're making yourself look silly. I replied. Noted. Later, at the party, she was mid-joke about how I imagined things, until a gift bag with the name of the city she claimed she'd never been to landed in her lap. Original post. I, 35 male, had been with Sarah, 33, for 3 years. We got engaged last New Year's Eve in front of all our friends at a rooftop party overlooking the downtown skyline. She'd been dropping hints for months, leaving bridal magazines on the coffee table, sending me screenshots of engagement rings, bringing up her friend's recent proposal every chance she got. So when midnight struck and I got down on one knee with my grandmother's vintage diamond ring, she acted surprised, but I knew she'd been expecting it. Everyone cheered, champagne flowed, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. Sarah was a dental hygienist at a practice in the nicer part of town, the kind of place where they had massage chairs and offered you cappuccinos while you waited. We'd met at a charity 5K that neither of us wanted to run. I was there because my company sponsored it. She was there because her best friend Melissa had guilted her into participating. We both gave up and walked most of the route, laughing about how we'd rather be getting brunch. By the time we crossed the finish line dead last, I had her number and plans for actual brunch the following Sunday. The relationship moved at a comfortable pace. She had her life, I had mine, and we built something in the middle that felt solid. I'm an operations manager at a manufacturing plant, steady job with good benefits, the kind of boring stability that becomes attractive in your 30s. Sarah seemed to appreciate that about me. No drama, no surprises, just reliability. But there was always something she kept just out of reach. Nothing major, just gaps. Stories that didn't quite line up. Questions she'd deflect with a laugh or change of subject. It started small. About 6 months into dating, we were talking about bucket list travel destinations. I mentioned I'd always wanted to visit New Orleans during Mardi Gras, experience the whole crazy spectacle of it. Oh, you'd love it, she said automatically. The energy is insane, and the music. You've been? I asked. She blinked, her expression shifting slightly. No, I mean, that's what I've heard. From people who've been. It sounded like you were speaking from experience. Nope, never been to New Orleans. Just one of those places everyone talks about, you know? I let it drop, but I filed it away in the back of my mind because something about her tone felt off, like she'd caught herself mid-slip. Then there were the photos. Sarah wasn't big on social media. She had accounts but barely posted, said she didn't like putting her whole life online for strangers to judge. Fair enough. But one night about a year into our relationship, we were lying in bed scrolling through old photos on her phone, laughing at bad haircuts and questionable fashion choices from college. She swiped past something quickly, but not quickly enough. I caught a glimpse of what looked like her standing in front of a distinctive building. Wrought iron balconies, distinctive architecture. Wait, go back. Was that New Orleans? What? No, that was Atlanta. The buildings look similar. Sarah, I've been to Atlanta. That's not Atlanta. You saw it for half a second, babe. Trust me, it was Atlanta. My cousin's wedding. Again, I let it go. But the coincidence bothered me. Why lie about visiting a city? What was the point? The incidents piled up slowly over the next 2 years. A mention of a restaurant in New Orleans she read about online. A reference to how humid it gets there during summer that felt too specific to be secondhand knowledge. A comment about the streetcar routes that she backtracked on when I raised an eyebrow. Every time I brought it up, she'd get defensive. Why does it matter? Why are you so obsessed with this? Or she'd turn it around on me. You're being paranoid about nothing. It's weird. After we got engaged, it got worse. We were planning the honeymoon, looking at different destinations. I suggested New Orleans as a half-joke, half-test. Absolutely not, she said immediately. Why not? You've always said you wanted to go there. I never said that. You're the one who's obsessed with New Orleans. Sarah, come on. You've mentioned it dozens of times. No, I haven't. You're imagining things. That phrase, you're imagining things, became her go-to response whenever I questioned inconsistencies. I'd mentioned something she'd said last week that contradicted something she said today, and she'd act like I was crazy for remembering. It was gaslighting, textbook stuff, but I didn't have the vocabulary for it at the time. I just knew it made me feel like I was losing my grip on reality. 3 months before the wedding, I finally confronted her directly. We were at her apartment, planning seating charts for the reception. and she made another comment about never understanding why people loved New Orleans so much. Sarah, just tell me the truth. Have you been to New Orleans or not? She put down her pen and looked at me with this expression of tired patience, like I was a child asking the same question for the 100th time. No, Daniel. For the millionth time, I have never been to New Orleans. Then why do you know so much about it? Why do you keep making comments that sound like first-hand experience? I don't. You're reading into things that aren't there. I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were crazy. But quit asking about my past like you're some kind of detective. You're making yourself look silly. The way she said it, dismissive, almost pitying, made my blood boil. But I swallowed it down. Noted, I said quietly. She smiled like the matter was settled and went back to the seating chart. But something had crystallized in that moment. I wasn't imagining things. She was lying, and she was doing it so smoothly, so confidently, that she'd almost convinced me I was the problem. I decided to stop asking. But I didn't stop looking. I started small, nothing invasive, just paying closer attention. I noticed she had a shoebox in her closet that she kept on the top shelf, tucked behind old sweaters. One day when she was at work, I pulled it down. Inside were ticket stubs, hotel keycards, tourist brochures. And right there on top, a laminated festival pass for Mardi Gras 2019 with her photo on it. New Orleans. She'd not only been there, she'd gone during Mardi Gras. The exact trip she'd told me she'd never taken. I took photos of everything with my phone and put the box back exactly as I'd found it. Next, I checked social media more carefully. Sarah's accounts were sparse, but she was tagged in other people's photos occasionally. I went through her friend Melissa's Instagram from 2019 and found an entire album from a girl's trip to New Orleans. Sarah was in at least 20 photos, posing with drinks on Bourbon Street, dancing at a second-line parade, eating beignets at what was clearly Café du Monde. The caption on one photo: NOLA with my favorite people. What happens in the quarter stays in the quarter. So not only had Sarah been to New Orleans, she'd been there with friends who were still in her life. Friends who came to our engagement party. Friends who would be at our wedding. Why lie about something so easily disprovable? What was she hiding? I could have confronted her then. Probably should have. But something told me to wait, to see how far she'd take this. Because if she was willing to lie this thoroughly about something relatively minor, what else was she lying about? Sarah's birthday was coming up in 2 weeks, April 15th. She'd mentioned wanting to do something low-key, just dinner with close friends at our favorite Italian place downtown. I offered to handle the planning, and she was thrilled to hand it off. I made reservations for 12 people. Us, her parents, my parents, Melissa and her husband, and a few other close friends. But I also made a phone call to a specialty shop in New Orleans, a place that made custom gift baskets with local products. Pralines, hot sauce, coffee and chicory, Mardi Gras beads, a decorative mask, postcards of famous landmarks. I had them put everything in a nice gift bag with the shop's logo prominently displayed. NOLA Treasures, New Orleans, Louisiana, printed in bold letters across the front. Then I had it shipped to my office. The night of the party, I arrived at the restaurant early and gave the basket to our server. When I give you the signal, I need you to bring this out and present it to the woman at the head of the table. Make a little show of it. Say it's a special delivery for the birthday girl. He looked confused but agreed. I tipped him $50 up front to ensure cooperation. Everyone arrived, and the dinner started smoothly. Sarah looked beautiful in a navy dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion. She was in her element, laughing, telling stories, accepting birthday wishes with the gracious charm she always deployed in social situations. About halfway through the main course, after everyone had a few drinks in them and the mood was loose and comfortable, Melissa brought up the honeymoon. So have you guys finally decided where you're going? We're thinking Cabo, Sarah said. Beach, relaxation, not too complicated. What about New Orleans? Melissa asked innocently. I thought Daniel was pushing for that. Sarah laughed, and I saw her glance at me with that familiar expression. Here we go again. Daniel has this weird obsession with New Orleans. I keep telling him I have zero interest in going there. Really? Melissa looked genuinely surprised. But I thought you loved it when we went. There was a beat of silence. Sarah's smile froze slightly. When we went where? New Orleans. 2019. For Mardi Gras, remember? I think you're confused, Mel. That was you and the other girls. I couldn't make that trip. Melissa's husband jumped in. No, babe. I remember because you were gone that whole week, and I had to take care of the cat. You guys are misremembering, Sarah said firmly, her voice taking on an edge. I've never been to New Orleans. Now other people at the table were looking confused. Sarah's own mother frowned. Honey, I'm pretty sure you went. I remember you calling me from there, complaining about how crowded it was. Mom, no. You're thinking of something else. This was it. My moment. I caught the server's eye and gave him a small nod. Sarah was mid-sentence, trying to convince her own mother that her memory was faulty, when the server appeared carrying the gift bag. Special delivery for the birthday girl, he announced cheerfully, setting it down directly in front of Sarah. She looked at it, confused. Then she looked at me. What's this? Open it, I said calmly. It's from someone who knows you better than you think. She pulled out the tissue paper and started removing items. The pralines, the hot sauce, the coffee. With each item, her face got a shade paler. Then she pulled out the Mardi Gras beads, and finally the decorative mask. The entire table was watching now. Sarah stared at the contents of the bag like they were evidence at a crime scene. Which, in a way, they were. What? She started, but her voice trailed off. I leaned back in my chair. That's from a shop in New Orleans. I figured since you'd never been there, you might enjoy some authentic local products. You know, since you've always wondered what the city was like, but never had the chance to visit. Melissa's eyes went wide. She looked at Sarah, then at me, then back at Sarah. Sarah was staring at the gift bag with the shop's name blazing across the front. Nola Treasures. New Orleans, Louisiana. Daniel, she started. Although now that I think about it, I continued, my voice pleasant, but with an edge that cut through the suddenly tense atmosphere. You don't need these. You already know what New Orleans is like. You went in 2019. With Melissa. During Mardi Gras. You stayed at a hotel in the French Quarter. You ate beignets at Café du Monde. You danced on Bourbon Street. You rode the streetcar. You came home with about 50 pounds of pralines and complained about the humidity for a week. The table was dead silent now. I have photos, I continued. Ticket stubs. Festival passes with your face on them. Instagram posts you're tagged in. Hotel key cards you kept in a shoebox in your closet. So please, Sarah, explain to everyone here, especially to me, your fiancé, why you've spent 3 years insisting you've never been to a city you clearly visited and apparently loved. Her mouth opened and closed several times. She looked around the table at all the faces staring at her, her parents, my parents, her best friend, everyone waiting for an explanation. It's complicated, she finally managed. Then uncomplicated. Can we not do this here? On my birthday? In front of everyone. You're the one who brought it up, I said. You're the one who told everyone I imagined things. You're the one who just spent 5 minutes trying to convince your own mother and your best friend that their memories are wrong. So no, Sarah, we're doing this here. Right now? Why did you lie? She was crying now, mascara starting to run. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Just a cold, clear need for the truth. I went with someone, she whispered finally. With Melissa and the girls. We know. No. Before that, I went in 2018. With someone else. A guy I was seeing. It didn't end well. Really badly, actually. And after that, I never wanted to think about New Orleans again. Then when the girls planned the Mardi Gras trip in 2019, I went because I didn't want to explain why I couldn't. But I hated every minute of it because it reminded me of him. So you lied to me for 3 years because you didn't want to admit you'd been to a city with an ex-boyfriend? It wasn't just a city. It was where he proposed. Okay. He proposed to me in Jackson Square, and I said yes, and we started planning this whole life together. And then 3 months later, I found out he'd been cheating on me our entire relationship. The engagement was a joke. I was a joke. And New Orleans became this symbol of the worst mistake I ever made. The revelation hung in the air. I processed it slowly. So instead of just telling me that like an adult, I said quietly, you spent 3 years gaslighting me, making me feel crazy for noticing inconsistencies, telling me I imagined things, mocking me to our friends. I wasn't. You were. Right before this gift arrived, you were literally mid-joke about how I imagined things, making me look paranoid in front of everyone. She had no response to that. I stood up, pulled my grandmother's ring off her finger. She was too shocked to resist, and put it in my pocket. We're done, I said. The engagement is off. I'll handle canceling the wedding. Daniel, please. You had 3 years to tell me the truth, Sarah. 3 years to treat me like a partner instead of someone you needed to manage and manipulate. You chose this. I looked around the table at everyone's stunned faces. Sorry to ruin the birthday dinner, but I think we all just learned something important about the guest of honor. I walked out of that restaurant and never looked back. Sarah tried everything: calls, texts, showing up at my apartment, sending friends to mediate. I blocked her on everything and told anyone who tried to run interference that my decision was final. My parents were surprisingly supportive. She lied to your face for years, my dad said. Over something stupid. What happens when it's something important? Exactly. It's been 5 months now. I heard through mutual friends that Sarah moved to a different city, started over somewhere new. Good for her. I hope she learns that lies compound, that small deceptions become big ones, that gaslighting the people who love you is a betrayal worse than whatever truth you're hiding. As for me, I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. I'm dating someone new, Catherine, a teacher I met at my gym. When I asked her about her past relationships, she told me everything. The good, the bad, the embarrassing. No games, no manipulation, just honesty. Turns out, that's all I ever wanted.